the information. So that's what they're preparing all of their resources for. And as you can see, right now they just have the entire freeway with a wall on one side and all of their officers and then the suspects. So it's just a perfect situation, and they're just going to ride this out. They could be getting other resources depending on the crime. They could be getting their SWAT teams in place and or to the scene and everything else. So it's all about safety. It's all about safety for the suspect and the officers.
Yeah, it truly is. And I know we're taking a wide look now, and it's incredible to see that wall of CHP officers there on the southbound lanes as they continue to follow this vehicle. But you can see plenty of people stopping, staring on northbound lanes and wondering what is happening. So it's going to affect traffic on both sides. But it's interesting when we zoom up into the suspect's vehicle here, you can get a better look at just how damaged those two front tires are. And it looks like both, you can see the rubber just kind of flapping there.
Almost more so now than it was before.
And you can see the silhouette of that suspect. I haven't seen what looks to be anyone else inside, but again, you can't see the back seat there. It's really hard to make out the front, but take a look. We're zooming up and you really see that rubber just flapping as those rims are really grinding that cement. And for a pursuit suspect like this, Patrick, this would be really hard to navigate this vehicle, right? I can imagine just how loud this is.
Well, yeah, and that's why he's barely moving, because the car is just barely being able to roll. He's down to the rims. You barely have any rubber left on him, and he's just riding out his last moments. Before he either has to get out and run or he's just going to open the doors and give up. And so there's just so much room for everybody to work with. It looked like he tried to get off the freeway when he did that one maneuver, but he didn't even make it off and stayed on the slow lane. So yeah, he's just rolling now to the final point where he'll stop, and then we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Well, Patrick, even to that point about a possible foot bail situation or an attempt at an escape, it seems like that is incredibly unlikely, almost impossible, given the fact of where they are right now in the middle of a freeway, and given the number of law enforcement vehicles in pursuit. In a way, it goes back to your even earlier point about how this is even made a little bit easier, because the likelihood of any attempt to jump out seems unlikely, unless I'm wrong. And please tell us.
Yeah, Gio, you're right. The problem that we have is that the ideal situation would be to shut down all the other lanes of traffic also. Because, several pursuits that we've covered, you've seen where they jumped out and ran across traffic. So ideally, they would like to even slow down the other side of the freeway, the northbound side. It looks like it has been slowing down a little bit, but you have that HOV or toll lane where they're all moving pretty fast. So they have enough units, and they have a couple of units over near that center island. So if something was to happen, hopefully they can catch him before he tries to jump over that, because that's the last thing they want is someone running through the other lanes of traffic.
I was going to mention that because we have seen those pursuits where the people just get out of their vehicle and they're already breaking the law now. So if they're running into the other side, into oncoming traffic, they're just simply trying to get away at that point. Do you think CHP will shut down those lanes anytime soon, or they're going to just continue to monitor at this point?
Yeah, based on all the units that they have involved and that are directly behind it, and then they even have more units that are holding traffic behind, it just looks like they made the decision just to deal with this side of the freeway. And then just if something happens where he pops out, they could have a canine that's there that would help, try to go after him before he gets over to those lanes. It just depends on how it plays out. But they've had plenty of time to make all of their decisions on all the resources they need based on the crime. And it seems like the vehicle's just barely even moving now. So we'll see how this plays out.
You can even notice from the zoomed out point of view that we have right now, that Leslie was mentioning earlier, the rubber sort of flapping around, and it really is barely moving. I mean, you could even make the case that in some cases you could walk or run just as fast as the vehicle is going. given where it is right now. This is the perspective here from the southbound lanes to the northbound lanes, and notice that right there. This is the impact we were talking about before, because while the pursuit is incredibly slow, it is by all logistical perspectives rather simple compared to other pursuits. This is the impact there when you have people trying to get someplace and you've essentially just stonewalled them until this pursuit comes to an end, which could be in the next few minutes, could be a while longer, and it's kind of hard to tell.
Even when it comes to an end, Patrick, it takes a while for them to get people into custody and really, move this car, be able to tow it away. But I do know the goal of CHP is to just get the freeway open as quick as possible.
Yeah, this is a nightmare for CHP. The last thing CHP wants is their freeway shut down. They're good at what they do. They deal with traffic all the time. So in this situation, if there's nothing else going on, there's no shooting or nothing like that, they'll try to get this freeway cleared up as quick as possible and then get all that traffic moving. But the problem is, in this situation, if he decides to barricade himself and not come out, then they have to call SWAT teams and everything else, and this could go on until tomorrow morning. So, everything's so unpredictable once it gets to this point. You just hope that he just steps out, gets taken into custody, they clear the freeway, and everybody can move on with their lives. But that's the unknown, and that's where in this situation, depending on the crime, and that's what we don't know. If this was an armed kidnapping, it's a very serious felony. And in that situation, and they could be calling in their SWAT teams now, and that would be what you would want in front of this would be some type of SWAT vehicle or Bearcat vehicle. So you have, an armored vehicle where they can pull in front of this and they can stop this pursuit now, and then everybody can handle it from there. But right now, you just want to be behind it where the suspect's looking forward. All he sees is an empty freeway, and all the officers have the advantages from behind with all of their lights and the whole freeway.
Forgive me if this might seem like a silly question, but in terms of communication with the suspect, is there any attempt at that from this current perspective that we're looking at right now from CHP directly behind the suspect? Or is this something that is just a pure, we just wait until that person stops? I'm not entirely sure how it would work in this situation, but is there any attempt at trying to communicate with the suspect, or are you just waiting until it ends before even that sort of thought crosses their mind?
It depends on what type of kidnapping it is. If it's a known suspect, then they would be trying to contact him the whole time. So they would try to get the phone number from family or, any but friends or whoever knows it. And then they would be between dispatch and the supervisors and watch commanders, they would be trying to contact him and trying to convince him to, just pull over and give up. And they would have crisis negotiators that could be involved also. So it really just depends. But sometimes, you have someone that pulls up and tries to kidnap somebody and you have no idea who they are. So this could be one of those too, where they just have no idea who this guy is and they have no way to figure out how to contact him.
Retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley, we're going to keep you here on the line. I just want to get some of our viewers up to speed since we have hit the 8 o'clock hour here on KCAL News. If you're just joining us right now, we are currently monitoring this pursuit of a possible kidnapping suspect happening here on the 405 South, right near the 22. We know this started around 6:45, right on the 605-5 interchange. At some point, spike strips were deployed, and we know that the car has the front two tires definitely ran through those spike strips, but because you can see them down to the rim there, you can see a lot of the rubber from that tire just flapping around. But Gio, for the last,
half hour or so,
more than an hour, this car now has led CHP on a pursuit, and at some points going 5 miles an hour, and nothing has come to an end. This person has not decided to get out.
If that's how fast they were even going, because we've vacillated between high-end speeds and potentially 2025, and then very quickly coming back down to this slow crawl. But on top of all those details Leslie was just giving out, it's also turned into what you noticed there on screen was a traffic incident as well, because despite the fact that this is a very slow pursuit, something that CHP seems to be very much on top of, with a light over top, you look at that right there. That is significant. Those are the southbound lanes of the 405 backed up significantly. And this was a pursuit that started on the 605, then transitioned here to the 405 in about the last 20 to 25 minutes or so. And the longer it goes, the more that's going to become an issue in terms of backing up even further and getting in people's way. So if you even had plans on jumping on there anytime soon, if you're still at home, that might be something to avoid in the very near future, because right now all of those lanes on the southbound 405 are shut off and shut down until this pursuit ends. So on top of all that, we continue to monitor the situation, and we also have retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley on the line with us to fill us in, give us some more perspective, more details on what's going on here. And Patrick, as you were mentioning before, this is really just a waiting game right now, correct? Is this just something where it could end in the next 5 minutes, maybe the next 15, or even in a possible long case scenario, could go into tomorrow morning if it turns into something with the suspect there, sort of waiting it in?
Yeah, exactly. These aren't our most exciting pursuits. You know, a lot of people like the exciting ones that have lots of drama and excitement, but this one looks like this is how it's going to play out. So this is, you know, until it ends, it looks like he's going to be going 2 miles an hour, and we'll just wait and see if, you know, the CHP or the police officers that are involved, or the deputy sheriff.
But people watching this may be asking, why not a pit maneuver right now?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You know, everybody always says, well, why not just pull right in front of them? Why not block them off? A lot of police departments have policies that they can't ram a vehicle. They can use the pit maneuver, but they can't ram a vehicle. They can't get in front of a vehicle. It's basically due to the dangers that are involved. And in this situation, it seems so simple to put a car in front. But to put a car in front of this car, you have to have an officer inside of it, and then that brings them into the line of fire if this, you know, suspect was armed. So they just want to keep him facing forward. When you do a pit, all the officers that are trained in the pit maneuver, it takes 2, 3, 4 officers to do it correctly, because one hits the bumper and then they keep on going. The other officers, you know, pull their vehicles up and conduct a felony traffic stop in whatever direction the vehicle is now facing. So in this situation, they want him facing away just in case this is an armed kidnapping suspect, and then they can, you know, make their moves from there. We'll see. I mean, I see some officers that are pulling up now. There are some different types of vehicles, so they may have something a plan in place that they try to bring this to an end a little sooner than keeping this going at 2 miles an hour. So we'll just have to see.
And one of the other things you were mentioning to us earlier, Patrick, was the fact that this allows officers a benefit of time and planning, because you're right in the sense that it's not, quote unquote, an exciting pursuit by typical standards here in Southern California. This is something that allows them to have a strong hold on the situation, because we've been able to maintain this vehicle even from SkyCal, from our chopper, incredibly easily. So I can only imagine with the number of law enforcement vehicles in pursuit, this has been a very manageable tactical situation for them.
Yeah, for sure. And you have probably numerous police departments involved also with CHP, sheriff's departments as well. So whatever resources they need, they already have in place. So you'll have officers on the other side of the freeway that are in place just in case something, you know, ends up going on that side. You'll have officers that are already in place on the off ramps and the on ramps. We saw that you have the police helicopter up above, so you just have everything in place perfectly, and you got plenty of time to think about it and make changes, and then just let it play out from there.
Yeah, and Patrick, you know, we know that this suspect possibly involved in a kidnapping. Now, we don't know the details of that kidnapping, where the victim is, what happened to the victim. We are waiting to hear more from CHP, but does this give you any indication that this, you know, every suspect that leads police on a pursuit is serious, but this just seems like, you know, police may be thinking this person is extremely dangerous, you know, maybe armed in some sort of way. It just, the amount of CHP officers is really making me question that.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know where this originated. I think it was Santa Fe Springs, which is LA County Sheriff's Department. And then looking at some of the vehicles, I can't tell if they're all CHP or not. So it just depends. Usually if it's CHP, CHP wants to handle it on their own. So the other departments will back off and just provide support. So this probably is all CHP since it is on the freeway, and I do see some of the CHP vehicles. So
I'm seeing all CHP, but as you mentioned that, I do see, and I can't make out what city it may be from, but one of those vehicles said police, correct?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
It stood out compared to the other ones. And right now we're maintaining an eye on the suspect's vehicle. They're getting a little dark, but otherwise you can easily point it out in the spotlight there over top as well. But to Leslie's point earlier, Patrick, it's the persistence. It's that's what I think is so striking to us so far, is the fact that, you know, that dichotomy of the fact that it's such a quote unquote easy pursuit to handle because the suspect is going so slow, and it makes managing it so easy, but also the question of, well, it is going so slow, so it feels like it should be over or under control right now. There's a friction there that I think is really interesting, and of course obviously concerning, given the fact that it's still ongoing despite a vehicle that a lot of people would consider is going incredibly slow.
But yeah, and in normal pursuits, you know how adrenaline works, and a lot of these officers get very high on the adrenaline. They got to refer back to their training and their experience in the termination points of pursuits. That's something that they don't have a lot of adrenaline as this pursuit goes on, so they have to stay very aware and on their toes in terms of what the next step is going to be when he does jump out or something else changes, because it's been going on at 5 miles an hour or less for so long. It does get a little bit boring until you're getting to the end. So I just the way that it's playing out though with CHP involved, CHP does not like to have things drag on. So the last thing they want is a freeway that's completely shut down like this. So it just leads me to believe that there must be some type of weapon that's involved in this, or something where they don't want to end this with a pit maneuver. So that's why they're letting this ride out how they have been doing it for so long.
Yeah, and that's, of course, as you've mentioned countless times, for the safety of the officers and the safety of maybe the other people there on the freeway on the other side. When you look at this, this vehicle looks like it's coming to a stop, but every time we think it is, the driver just keeps going, chugging along. But what would maybe be the next move once this does come to an end? Or well, I should say, if the driver stops.
Well, it's going to be the same thing they're doing now. So, especially if there's a weapon involved, if he comes to a complete stop, then it's going to be like some of the pursuits we've seen before, where they are just going to wait for him to come out. There's they have many other resources to force him out of the vehicle at that point in time. But, when it gets to that point, their hope is that he just puts his hands up, opens the door and exits the vehicle, and he's taken into custody. An ideal thing that could happen upcoming, which we could hope for, would be that they use more spike strips and try to get all of the tires flat, so that he's just running on simply all rims. But that's just, it's hard. They could do it, but they also have all the police vehicles spread all the way across the freeway. So they'd have to get somebody, put it out there and then also get those moved so that it doesn't flatten the tires of the police vehicles.
One of the things also, Patrick, that we've been looking at earlier these last 20, 30 minutes or so, was you could very easily tell, obviously we could tell the driver was there, we could see a person moving back and forth, but it's been very difficult to even point out or notice that potential kidnapping victim in the car as well. But it's worth repeating for people at home that the reason that this pursuit hasn't ended yet, to your point about pit maneuvers and about the tactical awareness that needs to be made in cases like this and situations like this, is that potential kidnapping victim in the vehicle is the reason why this is not done yet, because you have to manage their safety, officer safety, and everything else, going back to your earlier points about not having, even a suspect with a weapon, having that weapon pointed toward officers as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I haven't been able to make any calls or get any other information in terms of what this kidnapping was. But exactly what you said, if you can just imagine, that there's some, child or some kidnapping victim that's inside this vehicle, or say it's even inside the trunk. There's all kinds of possibilities. So, that could be the other reason why they don't want to get this vehicle spun around or get it into some type of accident or end up in some type of big shooting. So, you know, this is like we had talked about before. This is like a dream scenario to let run out until the vehicle will no longer move or it runs out of gas, and then they will move on to their next step in terms of taking the suspect into custody.
Yeah, many times we see these vehicles continue to go. I know we've covered pursuits that will last hours, and it never matters how many tires are still functioning. The car will continue to move. But Patrick, I want to get to what kind of communication do you think CHP is able to currently have with this suspect right now? Because this is pretty, as we mentioned, slow moving and kind of a good scenario when it comes to law enforcement and allowing them to plan. Are they able to negotiate with this suspect right now? Do you think that's something that they're already doing if they're able to get a hold of them?
Yeah, that's the key. And it's entirely possible they've been talking to him this whole time, you know, and that he's just, you know, talking as he's driving and saying, no, he's not going to give up, and saying, you know, whatever his next move is. Or it's possible that they have no idea who this guy is. You know, the vehicle maybe, you know, it might not have license plates on it for them to figure out where it's registered to and send officers there to talk to family and try to get information that way. There's just so many variables that are involved when you're trying to figure out who somebody is. Police have a lot of resources that they can use to try to figure that out. But it's just hard to say if this is some type of domestic situation, domestic kidnapping, or just some completely random kidnapping off some street corner. So it's really hard to say. But the thing is that it's almost 100% that all the officers involved and the police departments that are involved know exactly what happened in the original kidnapping, and that's how they're treating this situation, is based on those facts.
And of course, are going to continue to keep an eye on this, as you are as well, Patrick O'Malley, retired police sergeant, giving us some time tonight. We want to pause you for a second because we want to shift the perspective a little bit here as we continue to monitor the situation, because it's turning into, or rather has turned into, a traffic nightmare as well.
Yeah, many people stuck in this traffic right now, and our very own Michelle Julie is also stuck in that traffic. Michelle, can you hear me?
Hey, Leslie. Hi, Gio. When I looked up and saw what I thought were news choppers in the sky, I called, of course, the assignment desk, figuring that there must be something going on ahead of me. We had kind of traffic had ground to a halt there right at the 605 and the 405. And in fact, I was then notified about this slow pursuit happening ahead of me. So I'm, you know, amongst hundreds of other drivers moving very, very slowly, like 2-3 miles an hour on the 405.
Michelle, where are you on the 405 right now?
So I just, within the last 60 seconds or so, I was in the fast track lane. So I was able now to divert onto the 22. So anybody's lucky enough to be in the fast track lane and able to get over, or for that matter, I guess you can, you know, in the far right, you can get into the, onto the 22. We are now free of the 405, the mess on the 405. So I just got on the 22 and it's smooth sailing, but the 405 is just red lights as far as you can see. And so I wasn't stuck in it too long, but for anybody who's right behind that pursuit, they are going to be in for a long haul tonight, it looks like.
Yeah, Michelle, we were just, as you were mentioning that, SkyCal zoomed out and showed the incredibly long line of traffic, because what started off as just you know, some congestion on the 605 before then getting on the 405 has now turned into something that would almost look like a live shot on a major holiday, on a major commute, on a Labor Day or Thanksgiving or Christmas. And in fact, it's a pursuit that's not typical, what you would typically think about here in Southern California, going 70+ miles an hour. No, it's going at about 5, if not less than that right now. And I was pulling up the map as well while you were talking, and you were right. If you are fortunate enough to jump on the 22, you will be clear to go wherever you need to there. But otherwise, you are stuck for a significantly long amount of time there on the 405 while this is still going. And there doesn't seem to be any indication that it's ending anytime relatively soon.
Michelle, before we let you go here, were you
Yeah,
close enough at all to see how many CHP officers were there on the ground?
No, I was too far back. But the other issue, of course, is everyone now is bailing, trying to get off the 405. So say Steel Beach Boulevard, all of those exits to get off the freeway and try and take surface streets are severely impacted. So not only do we have the issue on the freeway, but all those surface streets. But just to get back to that, I was so far back that I couldn't see any flashing lights. But when I looked on my map, I did see red for, a decent stretch of the freeway, but it didn't seem as bad. So I thought I'd get right past it. But then as soon as I found out that we're talking about a pursuit, the potential kidnapping suspect, I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a long one.
Yeah, this is going to take a long time. And Michelle, being on the ground, you have reported on countless of pursuits. It's always just incredible to see these vehicles continue to chug along. We know this suspect has 2 front tires that are down to their rims, but not unusual, is it?
No, not at all. And I was jumping ahead to the point at which where the vehicle stops, and then the officers are trying to get, the suspect to comply. And I thought, wow, how long is that going to take, and how much further will the backup stretch, back into LA County?
Yeah, Michelle Geely, one of the lucky ones tonight, being able to jump on the 22 there before getting stuck in that 405 even further. Michelle, we thank you so much for calling us. We know you're always on top of it, and it's so good to get your perspective there, especially because you were stuck in that 405 for a little while there.
Okay, guys, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. And as we bring in now retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley back, as we continue to keep an eye on this pursuit. This angle, Patrick, we've been talking so far about how you can notice both of the front tires basically just riding on the rims. There was something else I wanted to ask you about earlier, because we've noticed this vehicle sort of occasionally try to pick up and ramp up its speed before it very quickly slowing back down to what we're noticing there. But look, there's the passenger right there. You see in the seat there, almost knocking.
See a passenger.
Yeah, it almost looked like they were knocking on the window, or at least maybe drawing some attention. But now you can actually make out that there is someone there.
Again, we don't know if this is for sure a kidnapping victim, but we do know this is a situation involving a kidnapping.
But ultimately, the point here and the concern, at least from our perspective, Patrick, is the fact that, we've seen other pursuits where a vehicle will lose a tire, or they'll be driving on their rims, but still try to go at a significantly high speed. And then that's where the friction comes in. That's where the sparks come in. And we know what happens when you have friction like that. It develops a fire, and that could turn into a potentially even more disastrous situation. So, on the one end here, it at least is positive that it maintains a slow speed, because that's naturally where my mind starts going to if they even try to attempt to pick up the pace and try to take off here.
Yeah, and it is kind of odd that they're going this slow, because with the full air in both rear tires, and this rear-wheel drive fast vehicle, he could be going much faster. So for whatever reason that he's going this slow, we don't know. But with that, seeing that person in the passenger seat, I thought I saw someone in there before, but I wasn't sure. But that kind of explains the tactics that are being used right now, is just give the vehicle distance, let the vehicle ride out. It's just so hard to tell how they came across this kidnapping, if the victim called or pushed 911 on their cell phone, or if they tracked the cell phone, or all the different resources that are available. So
yeah, and not to cut you off here, Patrick, but I do have an answer to that question you were posing there. Our assignment just let me know that a call to 911 came in around 6:45 p.m. tonight, and it was the kidnapping victim's family that called 911, stating this emergency. We know then that this pursuit started at the 5605. Again, we don't for sure know if that is the kidnapping victim. we believe it possibly is, but how much does that then heighten a pursuit, and what moves CHP is going to make?
Well, it just explains everything that we've been discussing.
Mhm.
You know, when you look at everything that's been going on, it was kind of easy to guess, you know, that those were the facts, but, you know, we don't want to speculate also. But you could just tell by the way the police were treating this, you know, to have a freeway completely closed down with, you know, thousands of vehicles being blocked. CHP is taking their time with this one. And based on that, which if a family called, this could be some type of domestic kidnapping. So in that situation, then they know the suspects, probably know the suspect's identity. They know his name. Obviously, now we have several cell phones that are in the car also. So, you know, there could be all kinds of communication going on. And if you bring a weapon into play also, you know, that just, it makes it that much more complex. So that's why they're just going to let this ride out. And hopefully, if they're in communication with him, they can convince him to just, you know, turn off the car and step out, and then they can resolve whatever happened from there. Because a lot of times in, you know, domestic situations, it's not actual kidnappings, but sometimes it is. You know, sometimes they went willingly and then they wanted to change the story, and, you know, because the family didn't like the other person, however it plays out. So that's this one. It's unknown, you know, who the two people are and the exact facts, but that's why the police are treating it this way, and they're just going to let it keep riding out.
Yeah, right now that vehicle is going, you could easily argue, the slowest we've seen this entire, pardon me, this entire last hour or so since we've been keeping an eye on it here on air. You almost get a look at the license plate there as well, but you know,
it's like one of those very distinctive license plates, you know, maybe one of those specialized ones.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. Though I mean, ultimately, it's
hard
just
to make out.
it is hard to make out, but even more so the fact that this car is just there. There's nothing you can do in terms of just anything other than what we've been seeing so far this evening, and that now we've been able to make out someone in the passenger seat. You know, the driver's right there, and it's you're just snailing along.
It looks like that driver there is wearing either glasses or sunglasses.
Notice some sort of, yeah, it looked like sunglasses, though, again, hard to tell from just a few minutes ago when I first noticed them as well.
It does look like sunglasses there, but you can't really make out the passenger, although we do know there's someone sitting there. This has really just, it does really explain what we have seen, Patrick. But when you think about what maybe this person may be going through, you know, what a scary situation. Your family called 911 on your behalf. So you just wonder just how much danger is that person in?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Because if you look at this car also, I don't know, it looked maybe like a Nevada plate. So a lot of times rental cars have out-of-state plates. So, you know, did somebody pick up a rental car and then have the intentions of going to kidnap somebody?
Wow.
Those are all things that we will learn, you know, as the days roll on and the person is taken into custody. But yeah, I mean, if it's 100% legit kidnapping and the family called and, you know, the person was armed and took this person against their will, then, you know, this is a very, very serious situation. And that's why you see so many police officers behind it, and why they just keep letting it roll out. Now you can see all of the spectators and everybody else that wants to be a part of it as well, which brings in other variables that, you know, you got to keep everybody safe, and the last thing you want is spectators or the looky-loos that could be injured.
Well, and this is sort of the irony of a pursuit like this, as it looks like the vehicle, it looks like it's at a complete stop right now, if not the slowest moving we've ever seen it at this point.
No, you're right. It's at a complete stop right now.
Stop right now. So now you see officers exiting their vehicles right now and approaching the situation cautiously. It almost looks, and Leslie, please tell me if it looks like they have weapons drawn.
It does. Yeah, they have weapons drawn right now. It looks like maybe they're giving out commands, and that would be the case right now, right, Patrick?
Yeah. So this is the termination point, or hopefully the final termination point, and then this is a felony traffic stop. And so this is how CHP and police officers are trained to conduct felony traffic stops, and this is where The supervisor on scene they'll have deadly force, they'll have non-lethal force, bean bags and other things like that. They probably have a canine. The police vehicle that is involved in this, I think, is a canine. So that's why he was there. And I think it is, because you can see it on the side of the door. So then that's what his vehicle is. So they have the dog there also. Yeah, so they'll just have everybody set up and they'll start making their commands to exit the vehicle. And so far, it looks like the driver has his hands out of the vehicle. So hopefully this will end peacefully.
Yeah, now open that driver's side door, and it looks like they're going to attempt to get out slowly. But you wonder if that is the passenger. The passenger's opening their door. But if that is the kidnapping victim, police want to make sure both get out safely and take one into custody. Take a look. You can see what we believe maybe the driver.
Yeah, who knows if there was a switch, but it looks like that is the suspect there exiting the vehicle, hands up in the air, and potentially the victim on the other side there. Looks like it's a female passenger.
Here's the thing. That suspect is really walking a lot. He's now holding that victim, embracing that victim, hugging. Well, I should take that back. Hugging that woman there, the passenger. We don't know yet if it is the kidnapping victim, but take a look. It looks like they're now talking.
Yeah. And he has his hands up.
The driver does
backward.
have their hands up. Yeah.
She's wiping her face right now. It almost seems like the significant emotion in this situation right now as she backs away from him.
Looks like she's talking to someone on the phone as well. That may be law enforcement giving her commands on what to do.
And an end to what has been an incredibly chaotic situation so far this last hour and a half. But to Patrick's point earlier, that this seems to be the final steps as we put a bow on what's been a very chaotic, crazy situation, a slow speed pursuit now finally coming in to an end here on the 405 as the suspect now seemingly stepping back, getting on the ground, and it looks like we have an end to this pursuit.
Finally able to get that suspect into handcuffs. This is the moment CHP officers have been waiting for almost 2 hours now. And you can see, it looks like they're not treating her as a suspect. So I can believe that maybe that is the kidnapping victim there. And you can see she's wiping away some tears. She's speaking to that CHP officer. But wow, Gio, we don't see that often, where the suspect then embraces the other person. And police, you can tell, backed off. And I'm guessing that is because, and Patrick, if you're still on the line, maybe officers were giving her commands on the phone. It looked like she was talking to someone on her phone.
Either that or
yeah.
Go ahead, Patrick.
It played out pretty much how we were saying. It looks like it was two younger people and, maybe an ex-boyfriend or something like that who showed up, and then according to the family, forced her into the vehicle to leave. So, as we were talking about communication and other things, it looks like they probably had communication with them the entire time. She was probably either talking to the police and her family, or however it played out. And, in the end, they were able to convince them just to pull over and give up, and it all ended peacefully.
And it looks like they're still communicating there with her outside of that CHP vehicle. And going back to the earlier point there, because we were filling in some details in case you're just catching the end of this pursuit, that according to our assignment desk, a 911 call came in around 6:45 this evening